Today's perspective, we'll try and take you through a timeline of a breach, how a breach develops, from a threat actor's perspective, from an IT admin's perspective, and then from an incident responder's perspective. So what we've done is we've kind of tried to break down a timeline, right? I want to break down a timeline. Obviously, this is definitely compressed. A breach, develops over a number of days, but this is kind of compressed into a few hours right now. So imagine 1 a.m. A bad actor has you on as a target, your organization as a target, and now they begin recon mission. What they're going to try and do at this point is they're going to try and use a couple of techniques. One of them is credential spraying. What a credential spraying technique is, basically they know usernames of the users in an organization, very easy to figure out, and then they know a bunch of passwords, right? And then what they're trying to do is they're trying to guess a weak password in an organization, and that can easily be achieved. They don't need to sit there and do one password at a time. There is a tool called msol spray, which is a PowerShell tool that can easily basically be fed in with a bunch of users, be fed in with passwords, and then it will tell you whether or not the usernames and passwords are matched on, let's say, an Office 365 tenant for you, right? So the other technique that they're going to be using is credential stuffing, and credential stuffing is they already have a bunch of passwords from different breaches, right? There's a tool called Flare. It's a paid tool that's used to scan dark webs. And if you actually scan the dark web with that tool, you'll actually get a whole list of passwords that a particular user has and has used in different services like Canva, or services like services like basically MyFitnessPal, for example, right? The reason I use that is because I see them all the time being used. And it assumes that most of the people reuse their passwords. And because the most people reuse their passwords, what ends up happening is the bad actors will then take that password and try it on your domain. So here, I'm going to try and demonstrate how a msol spray tool is utilized. I hope that the video is rendering okay. Please let me know in the comments if it is or it's not. So PowerShell script is deployed. msol spray tool is then launched. You import a module for msol spray. When that msol spray module is imported, you then import a list of usernames and then targeted password for that list of usernames. So a user.txt file is imported, and the password is provided to basically try against those users. So once that password is provided, there it is. That password, now we have cracked that password. We know that user OBR01 at IBT Labs, let's just assume that's our organization, has the has that password. Go over to Office 365. Boom, we are now logged in, right? Well, not really. Guess what? We now have MFA in place because, I've been crying about MFA for the past 4 years. So people have listened and, they have started using MFA. And here you go. We have stopped the attacker in its track. Now what do we do? Well, the attacker doesn't just give up. The recon continues. What the attacker then does is they try and figure out, they already know that they have cracked the password, right? They now try and figure out what ranges of IP addresses does an organization own. And that's not a private information. Unfortunately, you can use Google, Aaron, Whois, IP Info, Census, Shodan. There are a number of ways that you can actually find out what block of IP addresses an organization owns. But then what you do is there's an automated way to make things easy for the hacker. The NetBlock tool will actually, help you target an organization simply by providing the domain name of the organization, and then it will provide you the block of IPs that belong to an organization. So the NetBlock tool, the screenshots on the right-hand side, at the bottom of the screen there, what you see is the block of IP addresses that's owned by Google. And so now that you have the block of IP addresses, scanning begins at 3 a.m. in the morning. How does the scanning begin, right? So there is a tool called Nmap. And the Nmap tool basically what it does is it will actually take the file and scan against various open protocols for that IP address. So once that Nmap tool is downloaded, now it's doing scans against IP addresses for any open ports, right? Simple. So it's going from starting from the top IP address down the list, trying to figure out whether there is an open port, an FTP, an SSH. There is an SMTP port that's open, and eventually the hacker may land on something like this, SSL VPN. Okay, great. This organization is using SSL VPN, and it's amazing that they're using SSL VPN. Definitely, they're a secure organization, but the chances are that they probably have their SSL VPN identity tied to their LDAP, or they are somehow tying it to their Active Directory, and then that way they can use the username and password so that they don't have to manage multiple identities. However, have they actually integrated MFA with SSL VPNs? And I see many organizations that still don't do it, right? And because they have not integrated their MFA against their VPN connections, welcome. You just got breached. It's 4 a.m. in the morning. The attacker had the username and password from credential spraying and credential stuffing. The attacker found out which port was open and then went in through SSL VPN, and now the attacker is inside the organization. So once inside the organization, the attacker is going to take control and start using a tool called Responder. The way the Responder tool works, okay, is very interesting. So remember, the attacker has a username and password for that OBR1 user, right? Um, so generally, in many cases, Active Directory will allow you to log in, if you use PSXX or whatever, into your any domain joined computer, right? So this attacker now takes a pic, installs this tool called Responder on one of the domain joined computers, and what this tool does is very interesting. This tool listens on the wire for other users on the network trying to query a service such as a file server, right? So when a user mistypes a file server name, the file server says, "Hey, I don't." The network says, "Hey, I don't know what 192.168.1.5 is, or I don't know what file server one is, right?" But why don't I broadcast this message and ask the entire network if anybody else knows who that is, so that we can redirect you to that. And this responder tool catches that broadcast message. And this is all functionality within, your domain, right? And within your Windows network, um, you know, and catches that message and says, "Hey, it's me. Provide me with the username and password," right? So now this responder tool is posing as the file server. The user is presented with a username and password prompt, and more users um, give up their usernames and passwords, unknowing to them that it's the responder tool. So the attacker now has gathered more and more users and their passwords. Now, this is just a quick demo of how the responder tool works. They have the responder tool installed on a server. Are the videos streaming okay? I just wanna know from the chat. Okay, perfect. Yeah, thank you. Excellent. You know, all right. So here it is. The responder tool has now cracked the password for a file share there, right? So then what happens here is now you're allowed to roam free because you have multiple passwords and you have you know the entire network at your beck and call. So then the next tool that the attacker launches is called Bloodhound. And the sole purpose of this tool is to Exactly that, Stephen. Lateral movement, east to west, right? The sole purpose of this tool is to basically, find the shortest path to compromise the domain. It provides the attacker ability to move laterally and establish privilege, right? Basically, it literally maps for the attacker what path you need to take to get to the domain controller. So what happens is the attacker then lands on a server, right, where now there is a path to a domain controller. So the tool, Bloodhound, will say, hey, look, the usernames and passwords that you have will gain you access to XYZ server, right? So once you log into that server, this is where the Olympus starts falling, right? What happens is there is a utility called Mimikatz, right? This Mimikatz utility is basically, a utility that was developed by a French researcher named Benjamin Delphi, right? What he found out that in Windows, and this has been addressed, and you need to also take certain steps to address this in terms of your hardening of the infrastructure, not just the servers, but hardening at your workstation levels, because it's not a default setting. You need to make sure that this is taken care of through policies, right? But this what Mimikatz does is what Benjamin Delphi found was that using Mimikatz, you are able to find the encrypted password hash that's on a server. So whenever someone logs into a server or a workstation, just for ease of use, the username and the passwords are stored in an encrypted fashion on the server, so that next time when someone logs in and there is no network connection, you can actually log in without a network connection, locally log into that server, right? So Mimikatz uses that. It has a username and password, but whoever designed the system, in their infinite wisdom, the key to decrypt the password sits right next to the encrypted hash. So the way Benjamin Delphi described this whole scenario is it's like storing a password protected secret in an envelope with the password in the same email, right? So basically, the username and password encrypted is sitting on the server. The decryption key is sitting on the same server. Now, imagine that domain admins have logged into the server multiple times, because domain admins do log into the server all the time. And now you have cracked a domain admin's password, right? As soon as you have cracked domain admin's password, you know, Olympus has now fallen. So now you have the domain, but the attacker's not going to let go this one, right? Because now the attacker needs to establish persistence, right? The way the attacker needs to establish persistence, or the way they establish persistence, is they'll deploy a tool like AnyDesk on systems, so that, let's say, the server admin figures out the passwords, and then they reset the passwords and stuff like that. They need access back into the system, so they'll deploy AnyDesk. They'll create other users on the system, and then the threat actor will start loading tools like 7-zip, Process Hacker, WinSCP, right? They'll start compressing files. They'll start exfiltrating to Mega. Mega is a big repository, very popular with bad actors, and AnyDesk has a repository as well, so they'll start exfiltrating these files, right? Um, just enough files are needed to show proof of life, because their whole goal is to show that they have the decryption key, they have the files. They don't really want to siphon off the entire data. They want to they want to leave you rendered helpless at this point. So they'll siphon off enough data to show that they have been in the system, and they have encrypted the system. And so once they have siphoned off the data, they detonate, right? So they detonate the payload. What is this? So this one here is a payload from Zeppelin malware, right? Using the tools above, they make lateral movements, right? And when they make lateral movements, they basically start encrypting the files on each of these servers. Threat actors have great hygiene, so they'll clean up behind them. So as they log into the server and log out of the server, they'll make sure that all the logs are clean, all their traces are basically wiped. Any footprints they have left behind are gone. The logs are deleted. They will delete any malware files that they have dropped. And so then you will see on the right hand side there's a system now that has been encrypted with a unique extension to that file. And then they will leave a ransom note. As you can see at the very top here, each of the folder that they have encrypted will have a ransom note in there. And this ransom note right here, Google it, you'll see many of these, right? Basically says that you have been breached. You need to contact the online Big Brother is watching at protonmail.com. And then basically provide with a ID. They actually tag you with an ID. So now you can start hoping that you can start negotiating with them. But at this point, critical systems are down because your system files are encrypted, and you're now seeing systems turn themselves down and remain um, unaccessible. So at this point, the employees can't log in. This is 9 a.m. In the morning. People are filing in. The employees are trying to log in, and the employees can't log in. But that's not a problem. We have our IT guy that's going to swoop in because even though the systems are down and file servers are not available, we have backups, right? There's no problem. We can easily recover from backups. Let's log into backups, and we will begin our recovery. And that's when the panic sets in. And I have worked on a bunch of these, and when this happens, basically like everything goes blur, right? You are looking at it, and your backups are encrypted at that point, right? Your users are calling, your executives are calling, your clients can't access business crucial applications, right? Business can't open, it can't function because everything is down, right? Everything is down. At that point, what do we do, right? At this point, you need a breach response, right? The number one thing that you need to do is pull the plug, right? Uh, you need a one project manager at the helm. You will need either your CISO or CIO, or go out and hire a project manager that has worked on these kind of breaches before. Turn off all the networks in, out of the data center and the office building. It needs to remain off until the blast radius has been established. What that means is you need to go through, figuring out how far the attacker has gone. And that's not easy, right? But we'll get into that. Now, the business is fully in the dark with no communication to the uh, outside world. If the backups are offsite, smart, right? Like that's exactly what you want to do. If it's offsite and offline, that's where you want your backups to be, right? But we are assuming here that we have an organization that's not fully mature, right? So we need help. So what do you do when you need help? Well, there are a couple of options you can call. Help is expensive, right? Start calling forensics companies. I used to work at IBM, and we have connections at IBM. So contact IBM X-Force Red. Well, we used to call it X-Force Red at that point, but now it's called Iris, right? But you contact IBM, and they will basically tell you that their service is a retainer-based service. They don't generally pick up the phone and take people's responses willy-nilly. However, if they do decide to take you on, the cost is $56,000 US, minimum 120 hours at $450 an hour. That screenshot that you see there is from a real statement of work that we were helping someone with this, right? Or you can contact Mandiant. Now, Mandiant and IBM, both of them great companies. Mandiant approximate cost from what I've heard is about $1,000 an hour. It will take about 8 hours for each of them to begin work, and those 8 hours are going to be the slowest 8 hours of that IT admin's life, right? Uh, and I hope you have friends inside these organizations, because otherwise it could take longer, because it's literally moving mountains. These are huge organizations. There's a lot of red tape you need to go through, and you need to know people in there, or they need to have someone out there, right? What I mean by pulling the plug is I mean by what I mean by that is isolating your networks, right? I'm not saying you need to shut things down. However, in Zeppelin's case, if you do shut down things quickly, you may have a chance of getting the keys back. There's a company 8 days ago that decrypted Zeppelin successfully. It's called Unit 221B. Look them up. Great company. They have but there is a time frame from which the ransomware happens to the time that you shut down, because a lot of Windows servers are chatty and they overwrite the forensics logs. So yes, you don't need to shut down the network. You definitely need to isolate that, but it really depends on, you need to have that response framed depending on what you're seeing in the infrastructure. Do we wait or do we negotiate at this point, right? So do we wait? Do we negotiate? I guess time is of an essence. Do you have cyber insurance, right? And you call your cyber insurance company and see who they recommend from a negotiations perspective, right? If not, then you basically look for someone on your own. So Cypher is one of the companies, homegrown in Toronto. They actually work on breach responses. They cost approximately $10,000. This is not what the payout is going to be, but this is their fees to get engaged, right? But my recommendation is seek professional help. Do not negotiate yourself, right? Because you do need someone that has done this over and over again, right? You start working with the negotiators at this point. Now you're looking at 3 p.m. You're already at 3 p.m. You've lost half a day's of work. Again, these timelines are compressed. This whole scenario takes place over a number of days, but you start working with the negotiators. They will ask you for the infected files from all systems, ransomware notes for the infected files. They will start talking about what your maximum payout possibility is. They will start talking about discussion about timelines and how long before the downtime is unaffordable. And then they get to work, right? They begin their conversation with the bad actor. And here's a screenshot. Again, this is the Zeppelin bad actor, and they literally get on their chat, and then they start talking to them about negotiating things. In this case, they want what is that, $5 million for decryptors. The ranges, it can range from $15,000 to $5 million, whatever it is. Basically, they will send you screenshots for exfiltrated files to prove that they actually have the files. At one point, your negotiators will ask them to decrypt a sample file, so they'll send a sample file over, and they'll prove to you. One of the encrypted files will be sent over. They'll prove to you that they can actually decrypt the file, so that you have this. At that point, let's hope that the forensics has kicked in, and the forensics there is a very long and arduous process as well, because you literally need to turn on systems, turn off systems, run logs, take images, ship those images out, run forensics tools, right? That could help you with things like various Linux systems would get stood up, and you'll start moving data along. It's funny, you try and protect your data so much, but in these kind of scenarios, you're literally giving your data away to third-party companies, right? Because at this point, you have no other option than to give that data away, right? And then you just wait, right? You wait because you have to go through this whole forensics and the recovery process. You got to wait for the negotiations to take place. An average recovery time is 100 days for most companies, right? Malwares are created basically every day. 300K malwares are created every day. 75 records are stolen per second. The Russians are basically the fastest in hacking. They can hack a computer in 18 minutes. The Cozy Bear, which is a Russian entity, you see it a lot in cybercrime it's widely claimed that it's been supported by the Russian government. So it's funded by a nation state, so they have unlimited resources. They don't really have a timeline. Um, you know, these hackers are now banded together as a franchise. Basically, they have, just like your vendor, your salesperson, they actually have sales quotas, right? They actually have to bring in a certain amount of cash to their organization to continue working for them. So this is a big business, right? So at this point, you just wait, and then hopefully your forensics will kick in. Hopefully your backup and DR sites can kick in, and you can recover from it. But it's not like a simple one-touch recovery. There are various ways that you can protect yourself from credential harvesting. You have MFA, strong passwords, third-party app SSO integrations, account lockouts. You need to think about configuring alerts for suspicious logon attempts. Uh, you know, Tabletop exercises, absolutely, you need to keep doing those. That should be part of your IR and DR. Sylvia, great suggestion there. You need to do password audits. You need to do penetration testing at least on a yearly basis, right? We work with a company called Packet Labs. They're fantastic in terms of their penetration testing. They do an objective based penetration testing that can really tell you the problems even before they happen. How do you mitigate against responder, right? You do have to harden your systems, right? You do have to, basically set up monitoring for LLMNR, monitors for event ID 4697. Changes. You need to make changes to your the registry keys. You got to enable SMB signing in the group policy. Segment your network. That's one of the most important things. Isolate and segment your network as much as possible, right? Bloodhound again, you need EDR solutions, right? Microsoft Defender for endpoint, we support that. We are a Microsoft security partner. We love it. You do need the EDR solutions. You need to have those EDR solutions in place. Revoke domain admin privileges, or stop your domain administrators logging on to people's computers, workstations. Domain admins have no business logging on to people's workstations. You need to create delegated access. Workstation admins, server admins, domain admins, right? Domain admins can only log on to domain controllers. Server admins can only log on to the servers that they have been given permission to log on to. There cannot be cross contamination. Domain admins should not be logging in to server admins. They should be using a different username and password for that. One of the biggest things is that you do need to harden your infrastructure. You do need to isolate. You do need to ensure that your infrastructure and your endpoints have the right policies in place. And if you can, get rid of your Active Directory, right? Many companies have grown past it. You don't need it. There are many ways to control your computers and users just using Endpoint Manager and the policies. Reduce your attack footprint as much as possible. Like, we've been working for the last 2.5 years to actually deprecate Active Directories from many of our clients' environments, because you know what? It's an attack footprint that you can live without. Obviously, there's planning involved when it's a big legacy environment. You need to properly plan for it, and it's like a couple of years of journey to get there. But at the end of the day, Active Directory is your biggest threat landscape at this point. And run Bloodhound in your environment just to see how and what you get out of it.